Good morning and welcome to the Berkshire's Lenders Roundtable. As we go through the presentations today, if you have questions, please post them in the chat area and we will answer those questions toward the end of the program in the Q&A. As a reminder to everyone, this webinar is being recorded. So thank you for joining us today. As a matter of introduction, I am Keith Gerard. I'm the Berkshire Regional Director for the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center Network, which is located in Pittsfield. Before we get to our featured presenters, I would like to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. We work with about 300 entrepreneurs and small businesses each year, with our services being free, confidential, and conflict of interest free. So what do we mean by conflict free? The only interest we have is for our clients to be successful. Besides myself, our Berkshire team includes Jane Ballura, who is working behind the scenes today and managing the chat window and the questions and answers. So hi, Jane. Thanks for joining us. If you contact our office, she is often the first point of contact to make an appointment or to answer a question. And of course, Mark Avnet, who is a certified senior business advisor. Mark has a wealth of information, experience, and training, and there's just a few areas that are listed here. Besides the expertise of our small team, we have direct access to our colleagues across the state, which include 41 career professionals with deep and varied experience and training in banking and industry and in many other areas. Many of these professionals also ran startups and very successful businesses. And we are a part of a network of nearly 1,000 centers like ourselves across the US and the US territories. So you might wonder, what are these free and confidential services we provide? With business advising, these are just a few of the areas that we work with. Our small center has worked with over 4,500 entrepreneurs and small businesses since our beginning in 1995. So we are very familiar with all types of small business interests, challenges, and opportunities. And of course, there's government contracting services, which are provided by PTAC, PTAC, which stands for Procurement Technical Assistance Center. They help Massachusetts businesses get access to local, state, and federal government contracts. Lastly, we have the export assistance by the Massachusetts Export Center. And they have relationships with approximately 50 countries, and they help Massachusetts companies get access to these markets and provide guidance on regulatory compliance and identifying market opportunity. Again, all these services are free, and all you need to do to access them is to complete a short intake form. Okay, so now a word from our SBA partner and colleague, Oreste Varela, who is the SBA's Springfield branch manager. Oreste.
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. Yes, my name is Oreste Varela. I'm with the Small Business Administration, Massachusetts. We have 2 offices, one in Boston, one in Springfield. There's 12 of us, 11 in Boston, 1 in Springfield. You're looking at them. I generally cover the 4 counties of Western Mass, but since the virtual world kicked in with COVID and all that, we're covering everywhere. Anyway, Bob Nelson, our state director, would have loved to have been here, but he's on some leave. He had some surgery, and anyway, but he would love to be here, and he's very thankful to all of our lenders who make everything possible. Next slide, please. And also he sends his thanks to Keith and his team on everything that they do. Just a little historical recap. Again, these numbers are Massachusetts numbers. SBA Resource Partners counseled and trained approximately 22,000 businesses through 7 regional and specialty MSBDC centers, 6 SCORE chapters, 2 women's business centers, and our regional VBOC, which is the Veterans Business Outreach Center. We did, or you did, the lenders did close to $1 billion in traditional loans, which include 7A, 504, micro loans. through 150 different lenders. 504 is an amazing year with 504, 342 projects, making Massachusetts one of the most productive offices in that category, and over 21 billion in PPP. That's just Massachusetts, 21 billion. That's like, it's crazy, the number, these numbers here. And 6 billion, we just went over 6 billion in the economic injury disaster loan, $1 billion with the restaurant revitalization fund, 360 million in the shuttered venue operators grant. So we're approaching 30 billion in recovery funding for COVID through SBA, our partners, just really amazing. On the PPP forgiveness front, 82% of national loans have been forgiven already. We have 5 new 8A firms. So government contracting is huge. It's a great way for businesses to grow. So these 5 new firms, like, doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a big deal. And the hub zone, 9 new hub zone businesses also this year. And let's see, I can't see the bottom of the slide. Thank you. New grants under our Accelerator Prize competition, this prime grant funding, and we had two winners. They're out east, but anyway, in this pilot community navigator program, you're going to learn more about that and how these organizations are going to provide assistance to small businesses. Next slide. And not going to read all these numbers, but again, a great year for SBA loan programs. I mean, despite all of the negativity we hear about COVID and all the different challenges, it still is a remarkable year with all of our different type of loan programs. Next slide. So there are challenges. There's still challenges. Go over here. I'm just trying to get this window out of my way. So, there it is. So in 21, only 5% of 7A loans were made to Black-owned businesses, 8% to Hispanic, 4% to veteran-owned, 18% were women-owned. And these, unfortunately, these have remained unchanged over the past 5 years. So these are challenges for us. These are challenges for our lenders, and it's something we need to try to focus on. But anyway, it's a big deal. And also our data shows that small dollar lending has declined significantly in the 7A program. So this isn't so true in the greater Western Mass area, but just in general, these are trends that we're seeing. Loans made under 150,000 decreased by 53%. So like, high dollar loans are being made versus the low dollar loans, and effectively the minorities and other women-owned, veteran-owned those are typically smaller dollar loans. So this is leading SBA to a direct lending program, which doesn't exist yet, but it's something that's on a table where we're going to, it's something that's being talked about, where SBA normally doesn't lend the money directly, where we would in these particular cases. We'll see what happens with that and what the future brings. Next slide, please. Anyway, this is just you can just see the gaps, the challenges, and there's a few slides here. This one is veterans. This one is women, and the next one. Is that, yeah. So anyway, so we have challenges. Our challenges are your challenges, and we got to work together to try to make this happen. The 7A and 504 fees have been announced. You should already know that for 22. 7A loans, 350,000 or less, 0 upfront and annual service fees. Permanent change for veteran-owned businesses. Those fees are waived permanently. So anyway, so that's really great news. And there's some numbers of the fee structure. Again, you should know this. You receive these notifications from SBA. But anyway, so that's the big deal about fees for this year. Oh, and the Express loan was increased to $500,000. So that's another big deal for our Express lenders. Next slide. And so the thing is, this is something you might have known, but basically almost every business, 9 out of 10 firms sought some type of health or emergency funding through the pandemic, to include, so actually, the PPP loan. This is specific to PPP, but most businesses have utilized and needed and sought out assistance from SBA through these programs. And that was all due to Congress passing the American Rescue Act, the CARES Act, helping small businesses and, in fact, ultimately the consumer. Next slide. So I think Eli takes it from here on in, and Eli is our lead lending I always forget. Lead lending specialist. He's the #1 guy when it comes to lending for SBA in Massachusetts. And usually he's the smartest guy in the room. If you ask him, he'll tell you that. So, all right, Eli, the floor is, or the window, or whatever this is yours, the camera.
Oresta, I definitely appreciate that introduction. Thank you very much. Keith, it's a pleasure to be in these types of events. Thank you to your team, yourself, for all the work you do day in and day out. The partnership we've got with the SBDCs is an important one. And our lenders know that. Our lenders value what you do. Our lenders value the partnership, the value add you bring to the table day in and day out. So I want to thank our lenders here on the call today. I know that we prize quality over quantity. So we'd like to thank the lenders that are part of today's event. We have a lot of information put together for this roundtables. For those of you that have done SBA lending for a while, you know that. These are our flagship events, and we try to compact as much information as we can, as many updates as we can into these types of events. But I do want to keep it brief in respect of time, of course. So a quick overview of our overall, response programs to the pandemic. You're all familiar with this, so this is nothing new, but there's definitely, a lot of moving parts still with some of the programs. So we're going to talk about specifically today about the Paycheck Protection Program, the guarantee purchase process, the OHA appeals, some overall updates on that. The debt relief was another great program we had in response to the pandemic. For the most part, there's still, loans that were in deferment that could qualify for debt relief. On Monday morning, we're going to do a webinar here at the district office that goes over the latest procedural notice that went out regarding debt relief. Obviously, EIDL is the big, the only program, I should say, that's still up and running, operational, that small businesses can acquire funding under. So we're going to touch on that a little bit. For the most part, our grants, so the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant Program, Restaurant Revitalization Program, those are done and over with, right? So, but Oresta shared some of the numbers. They were a great success here in Massachusetts. And, obviously this was a collective effort. So we couldn't have done it. Oresta mentioned there's 12 of us here covering the entire state, and those are some big numbers. I mean, the data that Oresta shared with you all represents over 20 years of lending. So kudos to all of our lenders. The Paycheck Protection Program in particular, I believe, was the best, in my opinion, at least the best public-private partnership we've ever seen. Close to $800 billion, right, went to the balance sheets of small businesses across, the nation. So truly, a program like no other. Now it is tax season. I know we don't have an IRS representative here, but Oresta did mention that we try to keep up to date with the latest and greatest as they pertain to our programs, of course. So with regards to tax treatment on all of these programs, the IRS did publish a procedural notice in November of 2021. So this is fairly recent. And they finalized the tax treatment, or they published the tax treatment for all of the programs. SBA at least has the has offered in response to the pandemic. So first and foremost, on the Paycheck Protection Program, two things that are worth mentioning here is that the forgiveness on the PPP loan amount does not constitute a taxable event for the borrower or the beneficiary, right? So individual sole proprietor, whatever the case may be. Moreover, the expenses, that were incurred and, claimed as part of the PPP forgiveness can be claimed, right, as a tax deductible expense for the year that they were incurred under. So it's unheard of, right? But the IRS is allowing for basically double counting of those same expenses. So they count towards forgiveness, and then they count as a taxable tax deductible expense to the small business. So definitely something to make sure as you speak with your clients if those questions come up. Most importantly here, you heard us talk about a few different programs, but you see that on this next slide here, again, under that same publication from the IRS, all of our other programs, right? So whether it's the debt relief, the Section 1112 payments under the CARES Act, the EIDL grants or targeted EIDL grants, the supplemental targeted EIDL advances, the SVOGs, the RRF grants, right? So those payments are not to be included in the gross income of the beneficiaries, right? The persons who receive those payments. So technically not a taxable event for our borrowers, our small businesses affected by the pandemic. Great news, overall. Oresta did touch on the $6 billion mark here in the Commonwealth with the COVID EIDL approvals. I do want to speak a little bit to this program because it is still ongoing. It's an effort that it has helped a lot of small businesses. Over 65,000 small businesses have benefited here in the Commonwealth, and that's a big number, right? So, but there's been some major changes as of January 1st because the deadline for new applications ended on this program. So obviously we're not going to accept new applications starting January 1st. We're going to still process those applications in the pipeline that we received prior to December 31st. And we can still work with borrowers in reconsideration of declines, appeals of declines of reconsiderations, if those are done within the time allowed. So I've highlighted here what those timelines are. So again, pretty self-explanatory for you all, and I'm sure you all know this. I did send an email out to our lending community early in the week to talk about this changes. But again, a couple of other things that are worth noting here are that first and foremost, a borrower who received a loan, right, for whatever the cap was, whether $150,000 initially, $500,000 later, or now the current statutory limit of $2 million, can request an increase, right, for up to 2 years from the date of the origination date on the loan. However, we don't anticipate funds to last, much longer. So we believe we have funding to take us perhaps to the end of this quarter, so March 31st or thereabouts. So if you know anyone who has not taken advantage of the program, there is, and they have applied, of course, right? But they either did not ask for increased request or they did not ask for reconsideration. Reach out to us, reach out to those borrowers, have them connect with us. This is a direct program from the SBA. This does not require lenders, as you know it. Fairly easy to get the first $500,000 under certain requirements. And I'm going to share that with you in the next couple of slides. But keep in mind here that with regards to the grants, right, the supplemental grant is done and over with. So there is no longer funding available or authority to grant those funds. We are still going to allow, for the targeted advance, which is the advance of up to $10,000. We're going to allow for any declined advances a reevaluation request, but it must be done by February 15th. So time is of the essence here if you know of anyone that could qualify under that program. Now, again, any business that was in operation on or before January 31st of 2020 and has suffered an economic injury due to the pandemic is eligible to receive a COVID IDA loan, subject to the maximum loan amount. So the math is pretty simple for those businesses that were operational before January 1st of 2019. So tax year 2019 is taken as the basis for calculating loan amounts. Fairly simple math, 2019 gross revenues minus 2019 cost of goods sold multiplied by 2, right? That gives you the maximum loan amount capped by $500,000. Okay. Now that is step one. So a loan that's approved for up to $500,000 and qualifies for more based on this formula can request an increase, okay, up to $2 million per business, and with a aggregate single corporate group limit of $10 million. That's a lot of money. There's a lot of businesses out there that do qualify for it, chains and whatnot. So anything that's greater than $500,000, it's not an automatic approval, of course, right? So for loans under $500,000, you need a FICO score of 570. You need an existing business that can certify that they were, affected negatively by the pandemic, and it's almost a guaranteed approval. Okay, for a request greater than $500,000, it's a whole different story. Okay, so we will perform a full cash flow analysis to confirm, that business's ability to repay the loan and all of the other existing debt obligations. And we are seeing a number of declines because, 2019 may not have been the best year for some businesses, or they're simply over leveraged. Okay. But keep in mind here that the other thing you want to think about is this is not intended to compete with you as a lender, right? So we know that your business is lending. This is an emergency program. So we are looking at credits as low as 625 for this particular, program when it comes to loans over $500,000. Loans up to $500,000, 570 FICO is the minimum required. As far as repayment analysis, it's no different than that what you would look at, right, under the traditional conventional loan. So we do full repayment and cash flow analysis. We do collateral analysis. We take best collateral possible. And like every other program that we have this long-standing practice, lending practice, called the rule of two. So both the loan officer and the team lead have to agree to a final decision. Okay, so we're not just going to deny folks. We're not just going to approve folks, right? Unless they truly qualify. This is merit-based. And, the FAQ link that I put in here speaks to how the funds can be used. But primarily, we're talking working capital needs. We're talking repayment of, conventional debt, non-federal debt, right? Or payments of monthly payments, principal and interest on federal debts. So I believe because of the terms of this loan, there are some great benefits to the small businesses, to your clients. And even though you may think that, they may prepay your conventional, term loans and whatnot, it still helps these businesses survive the pandemic. We don't know how much longer this is going to last. We don't know, what else is in store for us, right? If we're going to have another closure or whatnot. But this will put the small businesses, in solid footing, right, to move forward from here. And obviously, SBA will subordinate to new debts that you will issue and provide to the small businesses. So the goal here is really to help small businesses survive, right? The thriving piece, they will need you as always. So I'm going to jump into the PPP loan programs. I know this is really the meat and potatoes of our presentation today. Oresta did talk about forgiveness. These are amazing numbers, right? So $800 billion almost in total PPP loan volume between 2020 and 2021. You see here that almost 86% by dollars has been, already forgiven. And you're going to hear me later speak to forgiveness, of course. But as far as applications go, payments, whether partial or full payments, 82%. of all PPP loans, first draw, second draw have already been dealt with. So this is great news, no matter how you look at it. Now, this notice, this is an IFR that was issued recently by the SBA. I believe it was September of 2021. And we have done a couple of trainings on this already with our regular lender trainings on Thursdays and Monday morning webinars. But I have a couple of slides. I do want to point out a couple of interesting and pertaining, I guess, points here for you all, because the SBA, does have another procedural notice in the works that's going to come out, and not revise this, but address different loans. So this particular IFR, and the link is at the bottom of the slide here, this one does address, Office of Hearings and Appeals, cases for loans, PPP loans only, right, first and foremost, but those that were ineligible to receive a PPP loan, for PPP loans that received more than what they were eligible for, or used the PPP loans proceeds for unauthorized uses. You've got those cases where their individuals or borrowers were ineligible for PPP loan forgiveness in the amount that you determined at your institution, and SBA did issue a partial approval decision, right? So you got to keep in mind that a borrower can only request an appeal after the SBA has issued a final review decision, okay? So on this next slide, your responsibility is to provide the notice, right, once you receive it, you have to provide it to the borrower within 5 days, okay? From that time, the time that they receive the final loan review decision from the SBA, they have 30 days, okay, 30 calendar days to request an appeal of that decision with the Office of Hearings and Appeals, okay? And they don't go through the lender. They go directly through through SBA's portal, which we put in place for this particular purpose. It's, they're able to manage their cases. They're able to, they should register first and foremost. A lot of information that's already on the system is going to pre-populate for them. And obviously, they're asked to file the appeal there and provide additional documentation, including the reason why they're appealing that decision, right? So this is something, the next bullet here, something that I do want to mention. This sort of contradicts a previous publication from the SBA of about a year ago. So obviously, a timely appeal of the PPP borrower of that final SBA loan review decision does extend the deferment period on the PPP loans. Okay, so we're going to talk about the deferment period later in the guaranteed purchase segment here for the PPP loans, but keep that in mind. This is, this is different than the policy that we have provided in the past. So although that's the case, right, that doesn't mean that you cannot request a guaranteed purchase or keep these loans, on deferment forever, right? So we'll talk about that in just a second. Now, the last two bullets are also very important. Obviously, this IFR is 16 pages long, right? So we couldn't put all that information into 2 slides here. But the borrower cannot file directly for an appeal of a decision made by the lender. So if you deny a file, right, they cannot go directly to OHI and appeal that file. They have to wait for SBA's final loan review decision, okay, before they can file for an appeal. So, and then also keep in mind that if we have seen some fraud with these cases, as you all are familiar with, right? So if a loan was denied by determination of the SBA's Office of Inspector General for whatever reason, that's not an appealable PPP loan. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. But those should be far and few in between. Now, going into the PPP forgiveness, first and foremost, I think before we talk about forgiveness, we have to talk about service in PPP loans. And briefly remind you all that PPP loans are non-recourse loans. Meaning there is no personal guarantees, meaning that there is no collateral requirements. This bear 100% guarantee from the SBA. This is your atypical loan, right? So this is a convertible loan into a grant, but there are 2 steps to it, right? So the origination piece, right? When you calculate the loan amount, then for it to become a grant, the borrowers have to submit a forgiveness to you, then you submit it to the SBA, right? So in the meantime, a lot of servicing needs to happen. So I have some links in here of publications and SOPs that pertain to PPP loans. Obviously, this next few slides of the presentation are based on the guarantee purchase and servicing responsibilities on PPP loans. That notice that we've got here on the second bullet. Obviously, there was a publication in late October about updates for PPP changes of ownership. We are seeing a lot of those, right? Keep in mind that, we made our portal, which you are all familiar with, the same portal where, PPP loans were originated, and, we made that portal available for guarantee purchases, and it's a fairly simple process. SBA does prefer, right, to deal with PPP loans through forgiveness and rather than guarantee purchases. Okay, so I'm going to stress that for you. So we would rather forgive a loan than go through liquidation and guarantee purchases, but only if they're eligible for it, of course. So the rest is pretty self-explanatory. I've got a couple of other links here with regards to regular servicing of loans. And with regards to lender responsibilities, just to summarize for you all here, right? So you have to service the loan until it's paid in full, forgiven, right? Or the SBA purchases the guarantee and charges the loan off. Your responsibility, right, is to keep good and accurate records of the loan, document any loan modifications, changes of ownership, and so on and so forth, right? So if you do receive, you have to submit separate monthly reports on the PPP loans. So those are due on the 15th of each month, unlike the regular 7A loans. But if you do receive borrower payments, after the SBA has paid the guarantee on these loans, you have to send the full payment, because these loans, again, are 100% guaranteed by the SBA. So the full payment needs to be sent to the SBA. And all payments are made through pay.gov. Obviously, you're familiar with payment code 172, or some of you are. Not everyone deals on the servicing side. As far as, the responsibility of borrowers, right, to make principal and interest payments. You all know that, these loans are deferred, right, for 10 months after the covered period. So if you've got a borrower that has not submitted a forgiveness application, you have to assume the longer covered period of 24 weeks, right, then add 10 months to it. For the most part, most of the first draw PPP loans should already be past that point, right? So October of 2021 was really where that time window took us for loans approved in April and May, right? So August to October was really that time window, and we are starting to see a lot more of this guarantee purchase requests, right? Because again, most of these loans were on deferment. So I think the timing of this topic is pretty, I think on point here. So now keep in mind that if borrowers do not submit a forgiveness application within that deferment window, right, then they have to start making payments. If they don't make payments, you really can't do a thing about it, but document the file with any communications, with invoices you've sent out, and continue the service in the loan, right, until is resolved, right, whether it's through payment or guarantee purchase. Now, if they do submit a forgiveness application, this is the, excuse me, this is an interesting point that I have to make here. If they do submit a forgiveness application after, you have issued an invoice for payment, after the 10 months window here, you have to put the loan back, on deferment. Okay, because now you have a forgiveness application that is pending. Okay, and technically, right, you cannot submit a guarantee purchase. So obviously, the deferment is not a requirement, but you have the option to put it on deferment again. And if borrower does make payments, then they and the loan gets forgiven, then they will be reimbursed those payments. However, if the borrower becomes more than 60 days past due, you can make demand, right, for payment in full, submit the request for guaranteed purchase, through the platform, and we'll take it from there. All right, so I'm looking through the chat. Okay, we'll handle all the questions at the end. So I would highly encourage you guys to type in your questions. Jane is monitoring the chat, and we'll address the questions later after all the presentations are done. So if you've got a borrower that files for bankruptcy, again, they do remain eligible for forgiveness, right? So we do not expect you to take any action in the bankruptcy proceeding beyond filing a proof of claim. So that is a nominal administrative, cost. We will not reimburse for that. But again, there's no litigation requirements for PPP loans. 100% guarantee on your end. No personal guarantees on the part of the borrower, no collateral. There's no point, right, to file or to incur any litigation expenses here. So as of the issuance of this notice that we're talking about here, we will not honor any litigation plan. So that is as of July 15th of 2021 and thereafter. Any legal expenses that lenders will incur, SBA is not going to share they're not going to pay on it, because our share here is 100%. Okay, so two options. You can request a PPP purchase with a charge-off, and you can request one without a charge-off immediately. The platform does have the option where you check a box, and that's the difference between the two. But again, you can request a purchase with a simultaneous charge-off when the loan is 60 days or more past due and the default remains uncured, right? The business has permanently closed its doors and there's no plans to submit a forgiveness application. A business would be eligible if they are closed, but they are submitted, right, a forgiveness application. They will be eligible for forgiveness if they have used the funds within the covered period and have technically documentation to prove, right, that the PPP loan was used for the intended purpose, right, eligible expenses. Now you can request a purchase, right, with a charge-off if you've got a borrower that filed a Chapter 7 bankruptcy protection. However, for borrowers that filed Chapter 11, 12, or 13, okay, that does provide, right, for a bankruptcy plan of payments on the PPP loan, then that's basically that would be accepted. However, if those the bankruptcy, the reorganization bankruptcy, right, whichever chapter is the 11, 12, or 13, if there's no bankruptcy plan or court order that provides for a payment in full of the PPP loan, and you've got 60 days that have passed the end of the covered period, then you can request a guarantee purchase with a charge-off. Always keep in mind, if you've got a sole proprietor, you got an independent contractor, single member LLC, self-employed individual who's passed away, you can always request a guarantee purchase on those instances. And we have seen a few, right? So the pandemic has affected small businesses just as much as anyone else. So with regards to purchases without a charge-off, you have to keep in mind that if you've got a borrower or any 20% or more owner that's been either indicted or convicted of a felony related to the PPP loan, then, that would be one option. Or if you've got, then this is the important piece here. So if you've got a borrower that has filed an appeal with the Office of Hearings and Appeals of the final SBA loan review decision, and 60 days have elapsed, we don't, again, what I mentioned earlier, that you have to put these loans back in deferment, but we don't want the lenders to hold the note at 1% indefinitely. This hearings could take months. So if you've got a borrower, in that situation, 60 days of no payments, 60 days since the date of filing, they have notified you in a timely manner, as mentioned earlier. You can request a guarantee purchase, and we'll deal with the rest after the decision from OHA. Okay, so how to request a purchase on a PPP loan? I'm getting close to the time here that I was allowed. So most of this next slides are pretty self-explanatory, but this process is done through the PPP portal. You have to make sure that you are the lender of record, right? So there are some lenders that purchased PPP loans. Those are considered the lenders of record, not the originating lender. Obviously, make sure that the system is going to pre-populate with all the information that's on the file. However, you want to make sure that the borrower's information matches what you have in our system. If there was a change of ownership, that has to be reported to the SBA, right? You have to have proper documentation as mentioned on that change of ownership notice in an earlier slide. If requested by the SBA only, right, an assumption agreement or other documentation related to the change of ownership has to be provided here. As far as your options here with submitting a guarantee purchase. So if you're the lender of record for both the first and second draw PPP loans, we prefer and encourage lenders to request both of them at the same time. The timing on the deferment period may be different, right? So that's not always the case. But if you've got the death of an owner, right, single member LLC, whatever the case may be, that would be advisable in those instances. Make sure that you are utilizing the charge-off feature on the platform to identify whether the loan should be referred to the Treasury for further collection or not. This next slide, pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to go through that. You do remember that for second draw loans, greater than $150,000 or a loan of $150,000 or less, when the borrower needs to provide documentation that they had a 25% or greater revenue reduction in 2020 as compared, right, to 2019, or any 8-week window in, any quarter in 2020 compared to the same quarter in 2019. You do have to make the certification that the information you are providing, submitted to the SBA is accurate, right? It matches your internal system as well as the SBA databases, E-Tran, and the portal. Once we receive the complete guarantee purchase package, and again, this could take, I don't know if any one of you have done it, a PPP guarantee purchase could take anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes, no more than that of your time. So we will honor 100% of the outstanding balance on these loans, right? As long as you have met all the requirements with regards to the underwriting. And those were basic, fairly simple. All you had to do is verify that the calculations on the origination side or on the application from the borrower were accurate, 2.5 times the payroll costs and all that. So fairly basic information. If there was documentation requirements, you did collect and you've got documentation, you retained that, including, the application forms, your own certification in addition to the borrower application. Keep in mind that like our 7A loans, you have to request this guarantee purchase within 180 days, right, after the loan maturity. So remember, you can extend the maturity from a 2-year up to 5 years, no questions asked, right? So if you've got a loan approved before June 5th of 2020, you can extend the maturity for up to 5 years. Then that will take, right, your window of requesting the guarantee, right, 180 days, 6 months after the 5-year window there, or maturity on that 5-year term. The guarantee purchase process, I got a couple of screenshots here. Again, everything we talked about, confirming that first and foremost, the reporting is done properly, the accuracy of the pre-populated information. You want to make sure that, you know, this is, if there is the need to correct any information, you do that on e-trans servicing, and you have to wait 24 to 72 hours before the portal is updated with the correct information. So it's not going to be instantaneous. Most of you know that already. So e-trans servicing is our mainframe. The portal is, you know, is basically, you know, updated usually within 24 hours, but sometimes if it's a weekend, if it's a holiday, it could take longer than that. With regards to, you know, payments, right? So accrued interest through the payment date plus a maximum of 120 days of additional interest, right, will be allowed. And this is in line with our regular 7A loans. So we, effective 2015, I believe December 1st of 2015, with our SOP 5057-2, that was, you know, that was the limitation on accrued interest paid. As far as documentation, again, you want to make sure, so the ACH should be the correct information because you'll receive payments through that ACH account with regards to, you know, the lender processing fee on all of this PPP loans, right? But you definitely want to make sure that you've got the right account if those numbers have changed. And again, I'm talking about the lender's account on the portal here. As far as you know, required documents that need to be uploaded on the portal, pretty basic, right? So the PPP note, the transcript of account, right? And, you know, if you have the assignment of the note is only required to be notarized, right, if you have an outstanding principal amount that's greater than $150,000. But, you know, that is a requirement. It doesn't need to be notarized, obviously, if it's less than that amount. The Treasury referral. Now, the one thing I do want to point here. So again, our platform is pretty easy, pretty user-friendly, and does all the rest there. But only, you know, loans with an outstanding principal balance of more than $100,000 should be referred to Treasury for further collection. Okay. There is a drop down on that box that gives you all the different options as to, you know, why you're referring to the Treasury, but keep that in mind. That's a requirement. For the most part, you know, we will pay 100% of the, you know, PPP loan balance because that's the guarantee. We will honor the guarantee on these loans, with the exception when there is, you know, some gross negligence on the part of the lender, right? So you've got, you know, failure to disclose or misrepresent material facts known to the lender, right? If the loan was ineligible for SBA financing, so it follows that same 7A criteria, except the nonprofits, the religious, you know, exceptions made under the IFR for PPP loans, and obviously if there was a breach of the SBA's conflict of interest regulation. So again, you saw the numbers as to what has been forgiven already on this PPP loans. It's a small number that's now, you know, the residual that probably will be, you know, addressed through forgiveness still. And, you know, probably at each respective lender, I think, I don't know, maybe you guys can share data with us. You probably will have less than 1% of these loans that will need to be dealt with through forgiveness. But that's, you know, that's the process. It's pretty basic, pretty simple. And I know my time is up. So before I'm going to turn it back to Keith, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. so we can have the next speaker bring up theirs.
Great. Well, thank you. Great. Thank you, Eli. It's a lot of information. Those people who are scribbling notes, we will be processing this video and sending out a link to everybody so they can review that. And Eli, would you be able to send a PDF version of your slide deck to us, and we could include that as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, terrific. So for people who didn't get all the information, including myself, we will be sending out information in just through a link through the video as well as the PDF deck. So okay, so it's my very pleasure to introduce our next presenter. It's been a real pleasure to work with her in terms of presenting for this, preparing for this presentation, and I'm hoping we could do more with her in the future. She's asked her introduction to be simple, so I am very pleased to introduce Michelle Lopez, the director of the Berkshire Immigrant Center. Michelle.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you for having me today. I'm going to keep this short and sweet so that we can get to questions, because I'd always rather have dialogue than hear myself speak. So like he said, I'm the executive director at the Berkshire Immigrant Center. We are based in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. We were established by the Jewish Federation of the Berkshires in 1997 in order to help resettle Jewish refugees escaping the former Soviet Union after the Cold War. And our constituents have grown, and we see about 756 immigrants every year, or this past fiscal year, 756 immigrants, and the majority of our clients over the past decade have come from Latin America. Our mission is to advocate for the rights of all immigrants by helping them navigate the complex U.S. immigration system with affordable legal services, local resources, and education. And this education includes financial literacy. It has come up more and more over the course of the pandemic because the majority of our clients are low income and have seen their sources of income, especially in the Berkshires, where tourism is a very large part of our economy, have really fallen, unfortunately, due to the pandemic. Just some statistics and overall information for all of you. I know that not everybody is located in the Berkshires, but overall in the United States, 1 in 8 people is an immigrant, 1 in 4 children is an immigrant or the child of an immigrant. So for your financial institutions, you should really be focusing on, wow, are my staff diverse? Do we have bilingual or multilingual people on staff in order to be able to help and assist the immigrants who are seeking financial services? You can easily find statistics on your own immigrant population, depending on where you are in Massachusetts, and I'll have resources available that will speak to that so that you can find out your own information and demographics of your population that you serve. In the Berkshires, we estimate that there are over 10,000 immigrants in the county. And like I said, we saw 756 immigrants last year from 65 different countries, and they're highlighted here in this map. So large majority from Latin America, but also Ghana and the Ivory Coast. One of the best sources of information finding out your immigrant population demographics can be found on George Mason University's website for Institute for Immigration Research. Unfortunately, they have not updated the Berkshire County statistics since 2017, but this gives you kind of an idea of the population that we have here in the western part of the state, which is 54% of the immigrant population in the Berkshire County are naturalized US citizens. So they've gone through the entire immigration process from establishing themselves in the US, getting green cards, and then applying for naturalization. And that process can take 3 to X amount of years, depending on your situation and how you entered the country, and your English proficiency, because English proficiency is a large part of the citizenship test. Immigrants in Berkshire County are more likely to speak English at home as compared to immigrants in the rest of Massachusetts, and we assume that's probably because of the unfortunate lack of language access available in Western Massachusetts. It's not like Boston, where you can find many restaurants and services materials, websites, etc., in Spanish and other languages. The median income in 2017 of immigrant households in Berkshire County was $56,819, which is 36% greater than immigrant households in Suffolk County. And one of our hunches for why that is because there are larger dwellings in Berkshire County as opposed to small apartments available in Boston. And we assume that there are more numbers of families or immigrants, friends living together and sharing a household and contributing to that overall income of the household. And last but not least, last fiscal year, so FY21, 21% of BIC clients were undocumented. And I have this statistic in here to really drive home the fact to these financial institutions that are on the call today that you really need to look into providing ITIN assistance, so temporary tax ID numbers to your possible clients, especially having people, advisors who are able to communicate with people in their native language to get them set up with those temporary tax ID numbers so that they can begin showing earned income and pay their taxes before they eventually, hopefully, are receiving documentation and legalizing their status in the United States. I will share some information on how to get a hold of me at the end, but just to give kind of a short and sweet overview, banking, credit, investment, and debt industries vary greatly throughout the world, and so do people's relationships with money. Going back again to Latin America, where the majority of our clients come from in Berkshire County, a lot of people are coming from countries in, total turmoil, dictatorships, communism, unstable banks, unstable currencies, multiple currencies. I lived for 4 years in Havana, Cuba, dealing with dollars, Moneda Nacional, and the CUC, which was intended for tourists in the 90s after the fall of Russian assistance in the special period, and living in a country where these three currencies are working daily and fluctuating, unfortunately, because the US doesn't do, financial business with Cuba, and them having to create their own currency that unfortunately isn't worth anything outside of their country. Just gives you an idea of what people who are coming to the United States from Cuba or from other countries with unstable currencies are dealing with, and why they have such distrust with financial institutions. There's a lot of informal lending in a lot of these countries, right? You're lending, you're borrowing money from a family member or a friend, or maybe not a friend, and dealing with the payback and paying back on time can be an issue and put your life in danger. People saving their money under mattresses and not at their local banking institutions because it's unsafe. They don't know if they'll be able to get their money back if there's a change in government. A lot of clients we see have distrust with online banking systems. They want to establish a personal relationship with their banker, with their lender. If they are searching for a mortgage, luckily, some of a semi-silver lining of COVID has brought online banking more to the forefront because people, haven't been able to go into lobbies of banks during different periods of the pandemic. So people are becoming more comfortable with online banking, but especially for our older constituents, they still feel that they need to establish that personal in-person relationship with their financial institutions. So going to needs, representatives, people, bankers, people who are providing, financial information assistance need to provide materials and websites in native languages of the people that they're assisting. They need to have people at their local financial institutions that look like them. I know this can be incredibly difficult to do. A lot of financial institutions in our area have reached out to us asking for tips and asking for us to provide job openings in several different languages. We do translations, and I'm sure there are dozens of places around the Commonwealth that can help, translate those job postings for you and give you information on what your immigrant population looks like. And all of these things will help build trust with your financial institution and the immigrant population that you're hopefully serving or will be serving more of. Some positives that are already out there and available to immigrant populations from financial institutions are VITA programs, so the volunteer income tax assistance programs. We've seen a few of those available in Berkshire County, available in English and Spanish, online as well in English and Spanish. Free virtual workshops that are available in different languages by different financial institutions, and more and more translated materials. So I hope that that's given you at least a brief overview of some of the struggles that immigrants face and why there's distrust with financial institutions, and hopefully a few tidbits on how to build up that trust. Again, we are located in Pittsfield, Mass, but there are dozens of nonprofit organizations that help immigrants throughout the Commonwealth. And I'm happy to help you find out which is closest to you. You can email me at director@berkshire.ic or immigrantcenter.org. And you can go onto our website, just berkshire.ic.org. Thank you so much for having me, and we'll go to questions.
Well, thank you, Michelle. In a very short time, you packed in a lot of information. So thank you very much for doing that. I learned a lot of stuff that I thought I knew, but I didn't know at all. So I'm curious if there was like a one or two top things that one of our lenders could potentially do to help the immigrant population. What might those two things be?
I would say having materials in your website translated at least into Spanish, if not also French, Portuguese. We have several bilingual tellers and banking assistants, people in lending and mortgages and credit departments, et cetera, at our local financial institutions. And if we in the Berkshires have that, I would hope that those of you in more metropolitan areas have those people working for you. It can be difficult, I know, to find people to work in financial institutions who have enough English to be able to also, do work with their coworkers to the level that's necessary. But I know one financial institution in the Berkshires actually has a Spanish class that is offered to their entire staff, and it's paid time for those staff members if they have the time to take the class. So it's just an idea. If your financial institution has the funding and resources to be able to provide classes in another language, it's a great workaround if you can't find the diverse immigrant population to apply for positions at your financial institution. I know that it's been difficult to hire people, right?
Well, thank you. I know that for us, a while back ago, we have a packet of information that's in Spanish. That's about the farthest that we've been able to do. For those people looking to start a business that has anything for how to talk to a banker, to what are the guidelines I need to be thinking about, to actual business plan outline. So, but certainly, hopefully we could work more with you and your center in terms of maybe other languages or maybe interpretive services or things like that. So, I see Oreste has a hand up.
Yeah, this is a question for Michelle and for the lenders. If an immigrant is undocumented, can they get a bank account? Is really my question. I know maybe they don't want to, but that's my, I'm curious anyway. I just don't know what that process is.
So there's one financial institution, it's a credit union in Berkshire County that I know does set up bank accounts for people who are undocumented, and it's been incredible. We refer most of our clients to them. Wow. But I have heard, we have a recent volunteer who moved up from New York City during COVID, and she worked at a similar but much larger nonprofit immigrant organization in New York City. And she said that she doesn't know any bank in New York City that helps
Wow.
people apply for ITIN numbers and open up bank accounts. So it's really, it seems revolutionary that our local credit union in the Berkshires provides that service. So I encourage you all to research how to do that. Unfortunately, I don't have that information,
Yeah.
but it's really incredible and has built so much trust with our immigrant population and financial institutions because of them providing those services.
Is that Greylock?
It is.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't sure if I was allowed to endorse on here.
No,
but yes,
no,
Greylock
they're
Federal
an
Credit
SBA
Union.
lender, so I'm glad to hear that.
They're incredible. Yeah.
Excellent.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, so we naturally flowed into the question and answer period, and I know that there's at least maybe one question, maybe more in the chat, but I just want to open it up for questions. Jane, do you have anything?
I just have the one, Eli, I don't know if you can see what Tracy had written in about the idols in the chat room. Did you have an opportunity to look that question over?
Yes,
you like-
absolutely. So to Tracy's question, obviously, SBA is going to review each request from a lender with regards to subordinating our UCC filings, right? So with COVID EIDL loans specifically, we are looking for best available collateral, right? So as any other program we've got, lack of collateral is no reason to deny the loan. And, all of our COVID EIDL loans are serviced by the Birmingham, Alabama Service Center. So we have centralized both the loan origination as well as the servicing of these loans. So, Tracy, if you look at my last email from, I believe, Tuesday or Wednesday, I put in, the steps that we published with regards to requesting the subordination. I'll follow up with that as well. I'll put it in the chat. I'll put the link to the information available to lenders. But yes, generally speaking, we will subordinate. It's a process, but I've seen it doesn't take longer than a few weeks currently. So obviously, we made 4 million of these loans at some point in time. The centers are going to get busy, and that time window for turning around these requests would go up. I would only assume that, right? But I don't think it's about to happen until things start to get better and lenders start to, look at lending, to these businesses that were affected by the pandemic. But yes.
Great. Any other questions that people might have? I want to give I learned a while back ago that you have to count to yourself 10 seconds to allow people to formulate their final question. So if you have a burning question or a need to know for Michelle or for Eli or for Oreste, please, now's the time.
I had another question for Michelle. What interest is there in the immigrant community to start a business? When I was some years ago, there was an organization, it left my head, but they had we worked with SCORE, one of our resource partners, and it was how to start a small business for immigrants. And it was really awesome. I loved it because we had Russian interpreters, we had Iranian interpreters. Anyway, there was at least 3 different languages. I would do a presentation, and then it would be translated. So something that normally took an hour was like 3 hours long.
Yeah.
I loved it because the immigrants, and some are fugitives, from these home countries which are persecuting them, they had such a desire to, for the American dream, and there's still an American dream, believe it or not, and a lot of it is to start a business. So what's the appetite? What do you when you're in working with these folks, is there an appetite? Is that something they're bringing up?
There is. So we are part of a local coalition of organizations that work with the immigrant population. And we sent out a survey late last fall asking people what financial literacy workshops they want presented over the next year. And second to tax assistance and immigrant, benefits, COVID relief assistance was opening up a business and how to. So, we've spoken a lot with our local E4All, Entrepreneurs for All, which I know has had excellent success in the Berkshires, and is really heavily participated in by immigrants in the Holyoke Springfield area. Unfortunately, we don't have anybody who is on staff or readily available all the time to work with any Spanish speaking participants at our local E4All. So they have been encouraged to apply for the one at Holyoke Springfield as long as they're virtual. But we have had a local immigrant go through the 2 cohorts ago to establish a landscaping business, which they've done successfully. So we're hoping that provides an example, but people do need to at least be, proficient in English. They don't need to be fluent, but proficient in English to participate in our local E4All. So if we could expand that and get E4All headquarters in Boston to fund, hiring a bilingual staff member for them, I think that would be excellent.
Right. And E4All is pretty intense and not really for everyone. And
yes, if you have a full-time job, I think it's hard to
yeah, it's really difficult. A great program, but anyway, maybe between Keith's team and myself, we can. Now, none of us are Spanish speakers, so or any other language. But if there's some interest and we want to talk about this later, that we can do like what I would call a simple how to start your business. Something that's covers the basics. I think I'm pretty sure that again, between Keith, myself, and your folks, that we can put something together, and
finding an interpreter for the workshop would be ideal.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll talk about that later. So, but yeah, anyway, thanks. Great to have you today, and this is great information and wonderful work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Oreste, to your point, over the years, we have worked with a lot of other speaking, non-English speaking folks in terms of starting businesses. We worked a lot with early on with the Literacy Network, and we've worked with people from Russia and Colombia and Ecuador, Mexico, from a whole variety of different, and sometimes they would either bring a trusted friend or somebody to help interpret, or other times we would engage an interpreter to work with them on it. We do have some materials, as I said, in Spanish, but we'd love to be able to explore that further and see what we can do. Are there any other final questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So basically, I want to certainly thank our presenters, Oreste and Eli, and certainly Michelle for being here today. And also thank our valued banking partners for being here today. And hopefully we've all invested and not wasted about an hour on these topics. And so I want to thank everybody for hopefully that investment. And until next time, be prosperous.